But I decided to take a step away from the confessions to talk about some news related issues and how I feel about certain things. And well, we're gonna just be calling this one hot button issues because these are hot button issues. It's what everybody's talking about. And I think it's a good idea to just jump into the conversation and at least be willing to have a conversation with people about what's going on. Oh, that coffee is delicious. That's besides the point. But it's May 14th, 2022. The biggest thing I've seen in the news, and I'm not a big fan of the news. I like watching podcasts to get my news. And the biggest thing that I've seen in the news as of recently is the upcoming decision on Roe v. Wade and whether that's legitimate or not. And I think where Americans stand in the mid, like when I look at the issue, Americans are pretty in the middle. You have your pro life people, you have your pro choice people, and then to a majority of everybody else who doesn't really want to be a part of the group, who's not a part of the group think, like everybody else that's in the middle. And this was actually going to be my next bullet point because I actually wanted to go through the decision first. But now that we're on the subject, most people are in the middle when it comes to abortion. All right. And that's just the fact of the matter. Like people are upset. They want to be able to voice their opinion, and rightfully so. Like I I think that most Americans are just really in the middle on it. You know what I mean? Like when people say that they're pro-choice, and you look at what the Democrats have proposed in Congress and got shut down on, was basically unfettered abortion, and people don't like that. They don't like the idea that a woman can, at the minute before she delivers her baby, just up and decide that she wants to abort that baby. I disagree with that morally. You can argue with me on why you think it would be a choice that you would make, but I think in general most people don't like the idea of just aborting a full grown baby at that point. You know what I mean? And I think uh, you have your pro lifers who just they can't think out of their box. You know what I mean? They love kids. I have a child. I love my kid. They love kids, and they believe that life begins at at conception. That's kind of a religious belief, I believe, but and I could be wrong, but I think that's where a lot of the pro life people stand, is that life begins at conception. And I don't necessarily agree with that either. Like, we can debate when consciousness begins, so on and so forth. But I mean, as scientific as we've gotten as of recently, you figure there would be some more science on the fact, and there's not that. You know what I mean? We don't have science on the fact, and that's a bummer. You know, but I mean, what can you really do about it? You know, but the pro life group, they say it starts at conception, and then you have your other side who is far away from them, who believe that you should be able to abort up until the moment of birth. And even some people are on record for con- wanting to do it afterwards, you know, like. And they say, you know, well, it's in these cases of severe birth defects, so on and so forth. So I mean, like, you can make those arguments for sure, but at the end of the day, you know, like, uh I just don't think that's the real deal Holyfield argument.
I just don't
Sorry,
think that's
I'm trying to share
the real deal Holyfield argument. I just don't think that's
trying to share
the real deal Holyfield argument. I just don't think that's
yeah, back onto the issue. Like most people don't, you know, I think most people are on the in the middle on the issue, and I think the most important thing to do is to start from the middle ground. You know what I mean? We always need to remove ourselves from. It's kind of like taking your ego out of a situation. You know what I mean? When Tom Brady comes onto the field, I'm sure his ego is that I'm the best quarterback, and sometimes your ego is a good thing to have, but you really have to subtract it when you're trying to make a coherent case or make just argue or debate in general. You know what I mean? You have to remove your ego from the the conversation. Otherwise, um, you can't have a real debate about it. You can't, you're too emotionally attached to what's going on for you to like actually argue facts. And I really believe in that. So you have to remove yourself from the situation. And I think that's where a lot of people stand right now. They just can't remove themselves away from their opinions enough to actually see anybody else's point of view, and that's kind of sad. Like, that's, as a democracy, that's what we're founded on, is having disagreements, coming together, sharing our ideas, and coming to a common, being on common ground, trying to defeat a common, or solve a common problem or defeat a common enemy. That's what it's about. And yeah, like I said, most people are in the middle. Uh and I think, and a lot of the hysteria going on is based on the fact that people don't really understand what Roe versus Wade is, and I'll get to that in just a second. Currently trying to tweet out, let people know that we're doing this live today, so that other people can hopefully join the conversation, and we can have an interesting debate on what's going on right now when it comes to Roe versus Wade. And later on, I'll be discussing what I we'll just say it's going to be another hot button issue that involves the trans community. I have no ill will to the trans community, but we'll get to that because that's going to be a later segment. Yeah, dude, I'm a caffeinated freak. All right, now that we've got that tweet sent, and we've got it out there, we can move on to the next. What I want to do is go ahead and, with all this uproar about Roe, I just want to actually read the decision, and I'll try to cite my where I get my information from after the video. I'll go through my citations, but right now we're at oyas.org, and that provides a lot of the decisions from the Supreme Court. I'm just going to read from the top right here. Inherent to the Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment is a fundamental right to privacy that protects a pregnant woman's choice whether to have an abortion. However, this right is balanced against the government's interest in protecting women's health and protecting the potentiality of human life. The Texas law challenged in this case violated this right. Uh, it says first, the court considered whether or not the case was moot, concluding that it was not. Of course, when the subject of the litigation is capable of repetition yet evading review, a case need not be dismissed as moot. Pregnancy is a quote unquote classic justification for a conclusion of non-mootness. So they admitted from the jump that they thought it was a conversation that needed to be had. So we're having a conversation about it. The Due Process Clause of the 14th Amendment protects against state action to the right to privacy, and a woman's right to choose to have an abortion falls within that right to privacy. A state law that broadly prohibits abortion without respect to the stage of the pregnancy or other interests violates that right. Although the state has legitimate interest in protecting the health of the pregnant women and the potentiality of human life, the relative weight of each of these interests varies over the course of the pregnancy, and the law must account for its this variability. In the first trimester of the pregnancy, the state may not regulate the abortion decision. Only the pregnant woman and her attending physician can make that decision. In the second trimester, the state may impose regulations on abortion that are reasonable or that are reasonably related to maternal health. In the third trimester, once the fetus reaches the point of viability, a state may regulate abortions or prohibit them entirely, so long as the laws contain exceptions for cases when abortion is necessary to save the health or the life or the health of the mother. So, reading that in its totality and the basic synopsis is it's more about privacy than it is the abortion itself. It's to protect the privacy of the woman to make decisions about her health, and where the pro-life arguers come from, like, like I actually agree with the decision, but I understand why people want to take a look at it, because when this was written, is 24 weeks second trimester? I guess it would be, right? Because as of right now, current viability outside the womb they suggest is about 24 weeks. That's what we're capable of, being able to nourish the infant and make sure that it actually develops to its full potential. And we've seen options of that. But nowhere, I will say this, nowhere in the Constitution does it say that women have a right to abortion. And so ultimately, to me, it's not up to the Supreme Court to make a decision on this. Like, it's not what the government needs to do, and even even in its decision, it says it's basically up to the state. That a state can't force, like, can't say, you know, you can't have a an abortion in the first trimester. That's what it says. It says you can't have you can't get an abortion in the first trimester, or you can only get an abortion in the first trimester. So it says in the first trimester of pregnancy, the state may not regulate the abortion decision. Only the pregnant woman and her attending physician can make that decision. Now, as a man, as a person who's had a child, I think that this just completely fought. And I don't want to sound like a men's right activist, but I kind of am. I'm a man, so I want to stand up for my rights, and I think that we should have a say in it. But while we're breaking down the law, I do want to interject and say that, like, look, men who are making this argument act like they're the ones that are having the babies. They're not. And we know, I don't know for sure, but I know from the testimony of women that pregnancy wrecks a woman's body, and it takes a lot to get that body back. You know what I mean? So I feel like at the end of the day, it's their decision, not ours to make. If we want to have kids, that's good and well on us, and if we're responsible and we're with somebody that shares the same values, that wants to have kids, that kid's going to get born. So this shouldn't have an effect on you and how you feel. But I think, I think that 15 weeks is a good place to start. Like, this goes again to Americans in the Middle. I think 15 weeks is a good point to say, okay, after 15 weeks, we need to start considering what restrictions we place on abortion. And you can argue with me if you want. I think 15 weeks is, at that time, the baby may have consciousness, but what we know for sure is that it actually, at that time, has all of its organs. They may not be fully developed at that point, but it actually has all of its organs. It has fingernails. It has hair. So, I mean, I think at that point, we need to talk about restrictions. But I don't think that abortion should be outright illegal. Now, let's go on to the second trimester. In the second trimester, the state may impose regulations on abortions that are reasonably related to maternal health. So what they're saying is the only reason why you should be able to get an abortion during the second trimester, and even furthermore in the third trimester, um, fuck. Now I lost my train of thought. I haven't had enough coffee before this. But I mean, at that point, once you hit the second trimester and the baby has all of its organs and it's basically, on its very well on its way to being a human being, that there should be some kind of restrictions that protect the mother in that case, because at that point in time, the baby, like I said, we can debate when consciousness forms. We know that babies probably feel pain at 24 weeks, but that's neither here nor there. I'm not trying to make that argument. I'm just trying to include what my idea of what the ideal law would be, right? So during the second trimester, it's directly related to the health of the mother. In the third trimester, once the fetus reaches the point of viability, which people are going to debate when viability is actually. I think we have seen in recent years that babies have survived as early as 20 weeks outside the womb. And and then what I mean, what they're saying is medically possible is after 24 weeks they can basically nurse a baby to its full potential. And so 24 weeks, and I'm willing to give, like, I'm willing to move on this. We need to have the conversation, we need to talk about it. And I think at that point, but I think once you get into the third trimester, that at that point, the baby's fully viable, it can survive outside the womb. We've already proved that we can survive at so 28 weeks would basically, or is it 26 weeks? It's trimesters, 40 weeks. So it's every 20 weeks. So at 40 weeks, the baby's fully viable. So I don't think at that point in time that abortion is right. I think people need to be responsible. You know what I mean? You've made it that far along in the pregnancy. I think if you've made it 15 weeks in the pregnancy, you probably should have already had your mind up whether or not you want to have that kid. That's just my opinion. I mean, we can debate about it. I'm cool with that, but I think that's where just people in general are at. Third trimester, honestly, it's gross to me, but that's my own opinion, and that's a pretty. I don't feel like that's applicable in this situation. You know what I mean? I'm not here. I am here to give my opinion, but I'm not. That's people can think about it however they want to, but in my opinion, I think that's murder at that point. You can argue with me if you want to. I'm cool to have the discussion. We can argue about it, but uh, I think it's no. So we've talked about where America stands, or where Americans in general stand on the issue, and we've talked about the decision, whether you agree with it or not. Look, I agree with it in the most part, but I also don't think it's the Supreme Court's duty to decide. I really think it's up to states to decide. And as long as I feel like this is a good start. Like I don't, and right now, and this is what moves us on into the next subject of today's podcast, which is the protesting of the leak. The Supreme Court has not overturned the decision as of yet. What we have is a whole bunch of rumors. We have this leaked decision. I think at this time, no one from the Supreme Court has either validified or denied that leak was a real thing. They are investigating it. But I see that as a huge problem. When you work for a company, Like when you're in a management team, when you have manager meetings, the manager meetings are intended so that leaders can focus on the leadership role, and that nobody from the I'm not to call them plebes, but nobody from the lower end of the spectrum can affect the higher. And I'm not trying to make it sound elite or whatever, but there are reasons why they have managers meetings at work. It's so that they can probably manage the business. They have, if you go to a restaurant, they have a front of house manager, they have a kitchen manager, they have a general manager. They break those duties up in order to make sure that every aspect of the restaurant runs properly. So the fact that there was a leak of this so-called uh it's not the final decision. And I think the leak itself, is just when the analogy I was making about the managers meeting, I feel is totally applicable here, because this isn't a firm decision. Nobody has said that we're going to outlaw Roe right now. Like, that's not what's happening. They're questioning it, but we haven't got a final decision on it. And so with that, like, you immediately have to go on to the movement, the movements, the protests that are happening outside of the court, outside of the judges' homes. Like, we have to understand as Americans, like, where do you draw the line? You know what I mean? Where do you draw the line? Because if you want to go protest, I don't know what you do, but if you want to go protest at somewhere, you're more than welcome to do that. But, like, do you want to go to somebody's home and protest them personally? That's just the thing. Like, nobody, it seems like not a lot of people will actually uh will think about it from what's going on in the perspective of their enemy or whatever. You know what I mean? They don't think about those things. And so the uh when you think about justices being attacked at their homes, harassed at their homes, where their families stay, that to me is a fucking crazy idea. Like, I'm not. It's not about the protest itself. It's just where, like, have some fucking decency, bro. Yes, it's a hot button issue. That's why I'm talking about it on the channel today. It's a hot button issue. A lot of people are amped up about it, and yeah, we need to have the conversation. But you have to draw a line. And if you've and there's you can go through a lot of different media organizations and you can see what you want to see, but a lot of those media organizations only put out what they think you will prove their point. You know what I mean? um like, Fox News will show the worst of the demonstrations, and when you flip over to CNN, you'll see just a whole bunch of people holding candles and doing whatever they're doing. Like, they have interest in pushing their agenda on other people. So we shouldn't expect less from the media. But if you look at it from an outside perspective, if you do any kind of research at all, it is illegal. It is illegal to protest in front of a judge's house. It is. We're going to look it up right now. I forget what exactly is the code itself, but we're going to find out, because I want to make sure that I get this right so that everybody. All right. Is it illegal to protest at a judge's house? I don't want to hear from PolitiFact on this. There's, like, where's just the law? I want to see the actual law. This is findlaw.com. Hopefully it's going to be it actually see, it doesn't actually list the code. And that's what annoys me. Like, people write articles, but they don't actually list the code. US 18 USC 1507. Picketing or parading. All right, this is what it says. Whoever with the intent of interfering with, obstructing, or impeding the administration of justice. So you're trying to sway the court from overturning the decision. So let's just read the whole code. Whoever, with the intent of interfering with, obstructing, or impeding the administration of justice, or with the intent of influencing a judge, juror, witness, or court officer in the discharge of his duty, pickets or parades in or near a building housing a court of the United States, or in or near a building or resident occupied by or used as such by a by a judge, juror, witness, or court official, or with such intent uses any second or any sound truck or similar device, or resorts to any other demonstrations in or near any such building or residence shall be fined under this title or imprisoned for more than not or for more than one for not more than 1 year or both. So yes, it's a fucking crime. Let's not we're not going to make that argument. That is a crime. It is a crime to protest outside of judges' houses. I've seen people try to, like, I've had this argument on Twitter. Nobody's had a coherent argument about it because they don't know the law. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm reading you the law right here. They say you have to be able to prove the intent. We already know what their intent is. They're upset that Roe may be overturned. They don't want it to happen. They know that the judges are going to be litigating this, so they're trying to influence their litigation on this subject. That is a violation of the law. It's a violation of the law, period. And so we need to treat it what it is. It's a fucking violation of the law. And, as somebody that's been the victim of police brutality, I don't want to see anybody get beat up, but if you commit a crime, you should be punished for it. Period. I mean, there's no excuse for this shit. And so, with going through all that, I just want to lay out my complete stance on abortion and exactly how I feel. And I've kind of already laid it out, but I'm just going to make it my final thought on abortion right now. And it kind of ties into the next topic that we're going to be going into. But my final thought on abortion is, I believe that, we know from the Constitution that there's no guaranteed right to abortion. So to argue differently, to argue that abortion is a right, it's not. If you want it to become a right, then force your politicians to hold the vote and actually do so. They tried to, and they weren't middle ground about it, and that's why it didn't get passed. So, it is what it is. But, if you want abortions, vote for them. My stance is before 15 weeks, I don't have a problem with it. I think that men should have their voices heard when it comes to the life of a child. If a man wants to have a child, but the woman doesn't, then I think he should be able to have the option to pay her to carry the child. But I think that ultimately, it is and always will be a woman's decision to choose to abort her baby, and that's what it is. And that is where the argument really I feel like spirals out of control, because we have to jump into uh, the ACLU's. Um, this is where we're going to start, because this is what I'm really worried about. I'm not going to consider myself a big feminist or whatever. I Because I'm a man, number one, but I believe in women's rights. But I think that this issue has gotten so uh uh just out of control that we have to have this conversation because the ACLU tweeted the other day. Um, I've got it right here. All right. So this is what the ACLU had to say, and you will notice that nowhere in here do they mention women. The only people that can get pregnant. Period. The only people that can get pregnant. Let's go through what they say. They say abortion bans disproportionately harm Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, the LGBTQ community, immigrants, young people, those working to make ends meet, people with disabilities. Protecting abortion access is an urgent matter of racial and economic justice. Let's just break that down for a second. Tell me where, because this is a woman's right, and we've somehow become so twisted in all in our basic pandering, and this is no dig at the trans community at all, but women are fighting for their rights right now. So if you're not a biological woman, I don't think you have any skin in this game. All right. I think if you're gay, even gay men have come out and said, why did y'all include us in this? We don't have babies, we adopt. Lesbians came out, said the same fucking thing. So just, and let's not pretend that we Walsh has me really interested right now. Some of you guys know Matt Walsh, some of you don't. I don't agree with him all the time, but like he has been really driving this issue about women's rights and trans rights, and the fact that like before, we can go through the whole list of like how it's evolved over the last couple of years, but it went from like trans was an acceptable way to describe people to, as of right now, it's a slur. But yet cis is, to me, is a slur because I'm straight. They want to call it cis, and I think they use it as a slur. I see it on YouTube, or I see it on YouTube, I see it on Twitter. I see, you cis cunt, get the fuck out of here. Get the fuck out of here, dude. That's massive trash. It is a slur. But I think that this issue in particular shows you that, like, it shows you we've been watching this all unfold, and I don't think enough people have come out to say, look, like, women are women, men are men. I'm sorry that hurts your feelings, but it's been proven in science. You're either XX or XY. You can identify however you want. I don't care. I'm a libertarian. Do whatever you want, makes you happy. But you're not going to force me to pay for your shit or to agree with you in any sort of way. I don't have to agree with you. That's the thing about America, and like everybody, and I guess that kind of ties into cancel culture. But look, it doesn't mean that I can't like you as a person. I have a few trans friends. I had one that fully transitioned, but he was a girl. He always felt like he was a boy, and he became what he wanted to be. But even now, he realizes that he will never actually be a man. But it hasn't stopped him from uh, living his life and trying to live it to the fullest. But said person will never experience, and I'm sure there like are emotional and spiritual orgasms or whatever. I'm not, as a dude, I know what orgasms feel like for me. I shoot a lot of them into the shower and into the trash can. And so, like I'm sure there are other ways, people get pleasure in weird things, but I'm sure that you can orgasm in other ways, but like that person will never be able to experience an orgasm as a man and won't be able to and had never been able to as a woman before he transitioned into a man. So, yeah, that's to me that's a really sad thing, but they're still living their life and that person is strong enough to remain positive about their life, and I find that very admirable because that's a tough spot to be in. I can't relate to that, but it's got to be unimaginably tough. But as far as the movement is self-concerned, I think we're at a crossroads where lesbians, gays, bis, the LGBTQ community just basically at this point need to split up because the LGB, in my opinion, LGBs got their movement stolen by the T's, and I don't think people realize that, but it's an unspoken truth. Not a lot of people have have spoken about it. Not a lot of people are willing to speak about it, and the fact of the matter is it's really just kind of sick. I'm not trying to say I'm saying the hijacking of the movement was sick. I'm not saying that the movement itself is sick or anything like that. I'm just saying that the hijacking of the movement has been really rough for people in those communities, lesbians and gays in particular, because they feel like their voices are being drowned out by what's going on in their movement, and they don't understand the I don't think they fully understand what's going on in that movement or fully understand what each of them wants anymore because the lines have been so blurred that people don't know what's going on. So I mean, it's a sticky situation, and I'm not trying to denigrate anybody that identifies as trans, but like I've made my point clear. I really don't care about your identity as long as you're not trying to fuck with my identity and be hostile towards me. Like I care less how you identify. I really do. Like if I know you as a person, I'm not going to judge you. The people my friends aren't friends because they're women or men. My friends are my friends because they have characteristics that I find admirable and I enjoy being around. It has nothing to do with their gender identity. Like at the end of the day, gender identity, we've put so much emphasis on gender identity that we don't even see people as people anymore. We see them as the sex that they believe they are. And that is just, it's such a departure from the reality that a lot of us have lived in throughout our whole lives. You know, when let's go back 20 years. 20 years ago, the science was clear. If you were born XX, you were a woman. If you had a vagina, you're a woman. If you were born XY, you were a man. If you have a penis, you're a man. Like the lines were clearly drawn. The lines are there are no lines anymore because at any day I can me myself I can just turn around and identify as a woman if I want to. I don't want to because I won't be something that I know that I'm not, and I'm not a woman, so I would never identify as one. And that's why we and this we can go into another topic. Let's talk about women's sports. and why this is important. We're talking about women's rights today. Let's talk about women's sports and how women's sports, what you guys don't realize, and this is at the trans community, what you guys don't realize is that in your search for inclusion, you are erasing completely erasing what it means to be either or. Okay? Before, either you were a man or a woman. Now that we have this going on, now you're erasing both sides of that. And that hurts women disproportionately when you include those two groups. You are erasing women. And in your search to find yourself, your identity, what you're failing to do is just simply admit the fact that you're confused. You don't know everything. Nobody does. I'm not saying I fucking know everything. It would be wrong of me to do so. So I'm not going to do it. All right. But I don't know. Such a hard topic to talk about. It's such a hard topic uh, to to navigate because of the rules. Even in the application of the rules, it's so hard to to because of the rules on every platform are so much that I don't know what is going to be, who's going to flag me for attacking who or whatever. I'm not attacking anybody. I'm just trying to lay out my opinions and try and make sense of all this shit. I'm trying to help. It would help if people would join in the conversation. What we need is more people putting in their 2 cents so that we can actually come to a decision that we can all agree upon. That's the problem. We can't come to an agreement, and that's what makes everything so fucking hard. And yeah, abortion and trans rights. It's crazy issues to talk about, I'm sure. But I mean, I've said what I've had to say. So in the closing 20 minutes, I'm just going to hang out. I'm going to smoke this one, just bullshit. Maybe talk about some personal shit. In the last month, I went from working one job to working two jobs. Then I got a job offer that offered me a bunch of money. I took that job, and I got fired from that job 3 weeks after starting it. So I'm still reeling from that, and I don't know why I got fired. So that really fucks me up too. Otherwise, I've been all right. I've been watching the news. The news really depresses me, and part of depression is talking out your habits and talking about the things that bother you. So that's. I'm not saying this is my therapy session, but thank you guys for watching or whatever. I've only seen a couple people in here, but like I said, I felt like I had to offer an opinion because people's opinions matter so much. What we don't seem to understand is the people that make the laws in this country really the only opinions that matter are theirs. They don't care about your opinion. They prove that time and time again. They don't care about your opinion. They only care about your vote. They only want to do what's going to get them reelected, what keeps them in power, what keeps them from wearing their mask, what you have to wear yours. You know, think about it objectively. That's really what the case is. Rules for you, but not for me. That's really what it's about. And yeah, we've had our conversation on Roe. I don't have to go further into it. If Congress really wanted to do their jobs, they would have already protected abortion. If that's really what they wanted to do, people want to talk about the fact that their idea got shut down in court. Well, maybe don't ask for abortions right up until the minute that a baby is going to be born. It's pretty fucking disgusting. And not only that, like abortions earlier, the earlier that happen, the less time it takes to get over. But when you're talking about like having to chop up a baby to remove it, that's fucking extreme and it's still going to be painful. And I'm sure the mental anguish that goes along with that. I'm sure that there's already a lot of mental anguish with any abortion that happens. I've heard plenty of stories of people that had abortions that regretted it, and that's their story. But that's just the thing. We have to think about this objectively. We can't be subjective about it because a lot of us have lived through. Like I said, I'm a single dad, and I hold my position, but I've been disagreed with by a lot of single dads that are like, well, I want my kids and blah blah blah. Well, you can still be there for your kids, and if you do the responsible thing and find a woman who you really find worthy and she thinks the same of you, then she's going to be willing to, and she's willing to have kids, and she's going to have kids with you. That's kind of like, I believe in romance still. That's what romance is, right? So what are you really arguing about? Why can't you find a middle ground with other people? Why do you think that you're right and everybody else has to be wrong? We're all in this together. The one thing that brings us together is the ground that we walk on, the earth that we live on. That, I don't want to get into climate change. That's not why we're streaming today, but from a standpoint when it comes to issues like Roe versus Wade and women's rights and so on and so forth, we all do stand on equal ground. We're all here on the earth, so we all need to come to a consensus. And I feel like it's not, I had somebody the other day tell me that disagreement is violence, and that's probably the most un-American trash idea I've ever fucking heard in my life. It really is. It's crazy to think that you would think that it's just crazy to think that you would think that. I don't know how else to put it. Like it just perplexes me that disagreement could be violence. Just because I disagree with you doesn't mean that I have any ill will towards you. It just means that I don't agree with you on something. Like, and I've tried to have this. I've tried to have a. I want to have other people join me on the podcast so that we can talk about what the truth is and why the fact that we let everyone have their truth distorts what the real truth is and what the facts are. We let emotions blur our vision too often, that we've lost sight of the actual truth. We don't let facts be facts. We always have to make it about ourselves. When we talk about narcissism, I think that's just a human trait. We're all narcissists in one shape or another, whether or not we like to admit it. Like, one thing about humans is we're always going to do what's best for us as an individual. It doesn't have like, and yeah, like when we live in a country like America, we're trying to do what's right for us. But as when we say us, we mean as a country, as a collective, you know. But human nature really is about us, about ourselves. And really, a lot of that goes to how you were raised. I was raised in a Christian family. I'm agnostic. I don't believe in organized religion, but so we had a pretty good, like I had a pretty good moral framework to work with by being a Christian when I was younger. That I understood that these are kind of rules that everybody should live by, and I don't disagree with that. But every religion has those things. But organized religions separate us even further, and so that's not a good thing. But at the end of the day, we just need to come together. You know what I mean? We need to stop shouting over each other. We need to actually listen to each other and have the conversations. We used to be able to have conversations, but now it's such a backwards time because speech is not weapons. It can be weaponized, but speech can't harm. That's the thing. Only people can harm. I mean, you can harm with speech, but it it takes a really weak person to disparage and belittle a person. It really does. It says more about the person who's doing the judging and the belittling than it does about the person that they're trying to dunk on or whatever you want to call it. I constantly am getting quote unquote dunked on Twitter by some meme lord who probably lives at their mom's house. They like to talk a lot of shit about me. I live on my motherfucking own. You see my fucking wall back there? You see that shit? That's nerd shit back there. Because this is my motherfucking house. Like I fucking love anime. I'm a fucking nerd, dude. Get the fuck out of here. I don't live at my mom's house. You probably live in your mom's basement. You're trolling. You've been on Twitter all day. And I don't fucking I don't I don't I just I don't know. You know? Like your opinion is not that important. If you want it to be more important, run on your ideas, run for a representative seat. I just hope that when you make it to the House of Representatives, you actually represent the people that you so called wanted to represent. But I think with that, I've had my discussion for today. I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and end it. The episode will be up. I mean, we went live, so people will be able to say whatever they want to say and come up with their own conclusions. I hope you guys do want to join in. I think the more people that join in on the conversation, the better the outcome will be, and the better we'll all feel about it in the end. But until we're willing to have the conversation and actually hear each other out, nothing's going to happen that anybody's going to like. And so, it is what it is, and like I said, let's talk about it. Let's have the debate. Let's fucking make some shit really happen for once instead of all the bullshit that goes on. Because right now nothing's going to change because we can't agree. And so let's find some middle ground. Let's do what people do. Let's find some middle ground, work things out, and fucking move forward. That's all there is to do. All right. That's all I want. This has been Hot Button Issues with Priest. I'll see you guys next time. We'll do another one soon. All right. Take it easy.